The Mortal Kombat series is home to many of the most memorable and terrifying characters in gaming history. I mean, look at this guy. He's got 4 arms and a 6-pack. How can any mortal man measure up to that? In a series that has spanned over 3 decades, sub-bosses were once common practice in Mortal Kombat. What's a sub-boss, you ask? Well, it's the penultimate fight in the arcade ladder. Basically the last fight before the final boss. By my count, we have seen 5 legitimate sub-bosses in the series. In today's video, I'll be continuing my MK Tier List series by ranking all 5 sub-bosses from S, which is the best, through D, which is the worst. I'm not including Quan Chi in Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero since it's a spin-off, or Cetrion in Mortal Kombat 11, since she is a sub-boss only in the story mode, or Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat 9, since he is what people describe as a sub-boss. This time around, in addition to basing my rankings on the character's backstory, special moves, and design, I'm adding level of difficulty to the categories, since this is a realistic way to classify characters that haunted our childhoods. With all that covered, I hope it makes sense and I hope I don't get roasted for leaving some of these characters out, but anyway, here are my rankings of every sub-boss in Mortal Kombat history. There's no better place to begin than with Goro, the OG Mortal Kombat sub-boss. For many of us, this character defines a generation, as he was one of the first genuinely menacing villains in the series. I will let the movie version of Goro give you the rundown. And no, not this movie version.
Right.
I am Goro, General of the armies of Outworld and Prince of the subterranean realm of Shokan.
Goro is the sub-boss in the original Mortal Kombat game, despite giving off primary boss vibes. Residing in Goro's lair, one of the most iconic stages, Goro is what you would find between the incredibly difficult endurance rounds and Shang Tsung himself. This monster is a Shokan, a half-dragon, half-human race known primarily for its immaculate physique and 4 arms. In the OG Mortal Kombat canon, Goro is the reigning tournament champion, having defeated the Great Kung Lao 500 years ago. He spent 9 generations as the Mortal Kombat champion, and the OG game represents the 10th, which would give Outworld control of Earthrealm. However, the game's main character and protagonist, Liu Kang, defeated Goro and won the tournament. After losing to Liu Kang, Goro disappeared only to resurface in Mortal Kombat 4. Hell-bent on revenge over his embarrassing loss to the Shaolin monk, Goro resumes his status as a sub-boss only in the home console versions of the game. He challenges Liu Kang again and loses, but instead of remaining evil, he negotiates peace with the rival Centaurians. At this time, Goro encounters Kung Lao, a descendant of the Great Kung Lao, whom he defeated before the original Mortal Kombat. Kung Lao gets the better of Goro and wounds him, before the two agree that the score is settled.
Goro, we are here to offer the Shokan a treaty for truce. The Centaurs have already signed and agreed to all terms. We now await your acceptance.
War has been waged in this realm for too long. We must bring it to an end. I will set aside my differences with the Centaurs as long as they abide by the treaty. I shall sign your agreement.
Goro, this is a great victory for all of us. Kung Lao, we are at a moment of peace. How could you attack now?
I once thought that an allegiance with an enemy was a lost cause, Princess Kitana.
Was that your attempt at an assassination, Earthman?
No, that was a ceremonial strike of revenge for my ancestor that you killed in Mortal Kombat so many years ago.
And do you wish to continue this battle?
No, I wish only to settle the differences between us.
Your ancestor was a great man and a brave and noble warrior. You should be proud of his accomplishments. If he won, perhaps it would be my own son seeking to settle differences with him.
Goro returns in the GameCube version of Mortal Kombat Deception and in the PSP exclusive Unchained. Not as a sub-boss, but rather as a playable character. His bio reveals that in the gap between MK4 and Deception, Noob Saibot mortally wounded him during a battle with Kano's militia. Before perishing, a weakened Shao Kahn happened upon Goro and used what power he had left to revive him. The two retreated into hiding to regain their strength before attempting to retake the Outworld throne under the promise that the Shokan would return to their former glory. In the events leading up to Mortal Kombat Armageddon, Shao Kahn and Goro succeeded in reclaiming Outworld after storming Edenia and destroying anyone in their path. Goro encounters and fights main character Taven in the Conquest mode, but loses, and ultimately becomes one of the many victims in the Battle of Armageddon.
Enjoying the view.
Who are you? What are you doing here?
At ease, Shokan. I am looking for Quan Chi. Have you seen him?
He is with the Emperor. I am Goro. I have been ordered to let no one pass under penalty of death.
My death? Or yours?
After the Mortal Kombat 2011 timeline reset, Goro returns to the same role as in the original game. He's won 9 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments, and needs one more to help Shao Kahn take control of Earthrealm. In the story mode, Liu Kang defeats Goro and Shang Tsung to win the tournament before MK9 enters the retelling of Mortal Kombat 2.
Liu Kang, it has been years since an Earthrealm warrior has progressed this far. But the reigning champion is far beyond your ability. To the lair with you!
I did not expect to fight in this tournament, but eventually, even the Shaolin produce a warrior worthy of the Shogun.
I know who you are. I am ready for you.
I will give you a warrior's death.
And a warrior greater than a Shokan.
At this point in the story, Goro encounters Liu Kang and Kung Lao, the latter challenging and defeating the Shokan to avenge his ancestor's death.
You have had your match against Liu Kang. Now you will face me! Now if you have any honor left, you will tell us where Katana is.
She has been taken to the Colosseum, where she has no doubt been executed.
You lie!
She may yet live. Let us go.
Goro is last seen alongside fellow Shokan Kintaro, where the two lose a battle to Cyber Sub-Zero before disappearing from the story.
Finally! Come on, we gotta get him to the graveyard at St. Dominic's. On your feet, all of you!
For what purpose?
Don't care, really, so long as I get paid.
He said on your feet. Come on, up, get up.
Hey, what did...
I will help you. Go, all of you, now!
Let's go, come on! Down here, let's go!
treachery will be punished.
Although Goro returns in Mortal Kombat X, apart from regaining his sub-boss status in the arcade ladder, he has no real place in the story since he's just a pre-order bonus. However, Goro has a sizable role in the MKX comics, which act as a lead-in to the events of the game. Once again working alongside Shao Kahn, a flashback reveals that he and Goro are responsible for massacring Kotal Khan's Osh-Tech race and the enslavement of Devora's Kai-Tin race. In the present, Goro seeks and successfully locates Outworld traitors Reiko and Melina. The two persuade Goro to join their cause based on returning the Shokan to its former glory. A joint effort between Goro, Motaro, and Rain plays out, allowing Goro to eliminate Kotal Khan's father. Later, Kotal challenges Goro to a fight, and despite having the upper hand, Goro's ego gets the better of him. Kotal brutally removes each of Goro's arms before the Emperor's forces emerge and eliminate Goro's army. After returning home, Goro shamefully faces his father, King Gorbak, who refuses the usual Shokan punishment, which is death. Instead, the king launches an attack of his own on Kotal Khan, but fails, dies, and is cremated while Goro bears witness. Fellow Shokan warrior Kintaro then informs Goro that he no longer has a claim to the throne. After hearing this, Goro vows to return before leaving to learn the history of the Dragon King, Onaga, and his regenerative abilities. An armless Goro defeats the sightless Kenshi Takahashi before meeting with Dagon, the leader of the Red Dragon clan. He exchanges Kenshi for more information on Onaga, and this is the last we see of Goro in this timeline. Goro returns in Mortal Kombat 1 following the latest timeline reset as a member of General Shao's army, but he doesn't have much to offer the overarching story. As you may have expected, Goro is an absolute unit of a character. His most memorable moves include a fireball, stomp, taunt, and a grab. Although this all seems pretty basic, his attacks are absolutely devastating. He's added more moves to his arsenal throughout the series, especially in MK Armageddon and MKX, where he was fully playable. He does have finishers, and although his early ones are terrible, his finishers in MK9 and MKX are a definite improvement, but nothing groundbreaking.
Goro wins. Fatality.
Goro is one of the most well-designed and iconic characters in Mortal Kombat history. His presence as a menacing four-armed sub-boss translates incredibly, even in the early games where there's not much from a graphical standpoint. Once you see him on screen, you know you're in for a grueling, quarter-consuming battle. Although the later titles don't innovate much on Goro's design, I have no problem with that, because there's really no reason to change a near-perfect character design. Goro is notorious for being one of the most challenging sub-bosses of all time. His attacks inflict so much damage that before you even know it, your character is face down with the continue screen, enticing you to try again. Goro does not mess around, which adds to his overall presence in the series. He's the kind of sub-boss that creates this effect. All things considered, Goro is unquestionably the most iconic sub-boss in Mortal Kombat. Purely in that role, no one can top him. However, I will take issue with how he's treated from a lore perspective. His power and dominance are rarely on display in the story, which is a shame because he should be unbeatable. But when you have a one-off character like Cyber Sub-Zero defeat him, I think it devalues the character a bit. Despite the story's shortcomings, Goro is a generational talent who enjoyed 500 plus years as a Mortal Kombat champion. His design and aura instilled fear in arcade goers and home console players, and his impact on the series warrants an S-tier ranking.
You weak, pathetic fool. All too easy.
From one Shokan to another, Kintaro is up next, a four-armed monster following in Goro's footsteps. He traumatized players in a similar way, albeit mainly because of ridiculous AI programming. Kintaro's first appearance occurred in Mortal Kombat 2. With Goro dead, another Shokan was summoned to take his place and avenge his death. This tiger-striped beast was the last opponent you would encounter before Emperor Shao Kahn. Although he appears similar to Goro, Kintaro is part of the Shokan's Tigrar lineage, whereas Goro is part of the Draco lineage. Kintaro vowed to avenge his Shokan brethren's death, but followed a similar path, ultimately losing to Liu Kang. He returned again in Mortal Kombat Trilogy as a playable character for the first time, and apart from a brief appearance in Mortal Kombat Deception and another sub-boss appearance in Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, Kintaro sat out until Mortal Kombat Armageddon. From a story perspective, Kintaro resides in Shinnok's Spire, but Shinnok later reveals this to be an illusion.
Wins.
My thanks to you, Taven. You have restored to me what little semblance of authority I have left.
I am honored to be of service to an Elder God.
I told you he was a problem.
He passed all my tests, destroyed my aberrations with ease. More quickly than you did. Perhaps I am aiding the wrong brother.
This fake Kintaro fights and loses to Taven, but the real Kintaro is famously seen in the opening of Mortal Kombat Armageddon, where he fights Kitana and Kano before perishing. Mortal Kombat 9 rebooted the series and welcomed Kintaro back into the fold. Appearing more cat-like than ever before, his bio tells the story of a Shokan warrior who fits into the lower Tigrar class beneath Shiva and Goro. Kintaro has a particular disdain for centaurs, which appealed to Shao Kahn, who appointed Kintaro his personal bodyguard. He appears during the events of the second Mortal Kombat in the story mode, just like in the original timeline.
I will eat your heart.
Kung Lao defeated him, but shortly after, Kintaro became responsible for Cabal's severe burns.
Humans, less ugly when they burn.
Stryker defeats Kintaro, and later, he and Goro battle Cyber Sub-Zero in a losing effort. Although Kintaro doesn't appear in Mortal Kombat X, he plays a significant role in the comics that precede the events of the game. After Kotal Kahn mutilates Goro, Kintaro arrives in the capital city of Outworld to confront the Emperor. Kotal and his generals refuse to surrender, prompting a retaliation by the Shokan army. And despite launching a siege, the Shokan fall and King Gorbak perishes. Upon his return home, King Gorbak receives a proper cremation, and Kintaro informs Goro that his claim to the throne is no longer valid due to his injuries. Kintaro journeys back to the capital city of Outworld to confront Kotal Kahn. The Shokan army are prepared to go to war, but a coordinated attack by Tremor and Kano annihilated Kintaro's army. With certain defeat and potential death looming, Kotal instead spares Kintaro. Rather than fight the Shokan, he proposes to form an alliance to take down Mileena and Reiko. Kintaro accepts Kotal's suggestion, officially creating an alliance between the two armies. While observing a battle between Mileena and Kotal Kahn from a boat, Queen Shiva forbids the Shokan army from involving themselves. Kintaro defies these orders, sending scouts to the island, resulting in their deaths. This enrages Shiva, but an unexpected attack on their fleet sends the Shokan into the waters. Shiva rescues Kintaro, who apparently can't swim, and he swears his allegiance to her. Kintaro would ultimately meet his end at the hands of Cassie Cage, Jackie Briggs, and Sonya Blade, all of whom were possessed by the Blood Code. This marks Kintaro's latest and final appearance in Mortal Kombat to this day. Kintaro is very similar to Goro from a special moves standpoint. Although it's pretty cool, it's also not entirely original. When squaring off against him in MK2, you can expect a fireball, stomp, grab, and vicious kicks and punches. His moves remain consistent throughout his other appearances, and he even gets a pair of finishers in MK9, but they're nothing special.
Kintaro wins.
I'm a massive fan of Kintaro's initial appearance in MK2. He got progressively more cat-like throughout the series, especially in MK9, which I didn't like, but he looked great in Armageddon and the MKX comic. I see a lot of mixed opinions about Kintaro's design over the years, and I'm wondering, what's your favorite? Let me know in the comments. From a difficulty perspective, Kintaro pulls no punches when you finally reach him in MK2. Like Goro, this is a product of ridiculously programmed AI, which exists to eat your quarters. It took me quite some time to defeat Kintaro, despite using the cheap techniques others have discovered. All in all, Kintaro is a tough SOB. Kintaro is a solid sub-boss overall, but I find it difficult to justify putting him in the S tier. He feels just like Goro Part 2, and although I like how his story played out, aside from the whole dying in the MKX comic thing, Kintaro is a step below for sure. I will say that I wish we saw more of Kintaro, but that's probably a product of the series just having too many mouths to feed. With all that said, I'm putting Kintaro in the A tier. Now that we've covered the two four-arm Shokan sub-bosses, we move on to Motaro, a half-human, half-horse centaur. He is the only known and named member of his species to appear in the MK series, making him truly unique. Motaro assumes the sub-boss role first in Mortal Kombat 3 and retains that role in UMK3 and MK Trilogy. He is the second to last fight before arriving at Shao Kahn on the arcade ladder. After falling out of favor with the Emperor, the Shokan lost Shao Kahn as an ally. He instead turned to the Centaurian race, forming extermination squads that would be led by none other than Motaro. In canon, Motaro was responsible for Johnny Cage's death, explaining his absence in Mortal Kombat 3 and UMK3. Motaro later recovers an injured Kano following his battle with Sonya Blade, and imprisons him for eventual punishment. At the end of MK3, Shiva supposedly eliminates Motaro, who would disappear from the series for some time. Motaro returned in Mortal Kombat Armageddon, but there was something different about him. Rather than appearing as a centaur, Motaro is now a minotaur thanks to a mysterious curse bestowed upon the centaur race. At this point, which I'm sure most of you can predict, Motaro died alongside the forces of darkness during the Battle of Armageddon. Mortal Kombat 9 welcomed Motaro back to the series, assuming the same role from previous games. He is once again a Centaurian member of Shao Kahn's army, and can be seen after the Emperor's supposed demise at the hands of Liu Kang. Motaro later participates in the invasion of Earthrealm, fighting Johnny Cage. Raiden intervenes after seeing a vision earlier in the game, indicating that Johnny Cage would die to Motaro. Raiden ends Motaro, who was brought back to Shao Kahn's headquarters.
What is this?
Raiden has killed Motaro.
That's him, on the throne.
You're a right genius, you are.
It's no great matter. I will go to Earthrealm to finish Motaro's work.
Yes. Shang Tsung.
Yes, Emperor.
The Empress requires something of you.
Similar to Goro from earlier, Motaro returned in MK1, but only as a cameo. He does appear in the story as part of General Shao's Outworld army.
Return Liu Kang to the portal gate, Li Mei. He isn't welcome in Outworld.
I won't support the General, Reiko, nor his plot to usurp the throne.
Then you won't live to see the new regime.
Motaro's deep bag of power moves haunted my dreams as a kid. In addition to his fireball, grab, teleport, and tail sweep, Motaro had agility in his favor. He only has a pair of fatalities, and the one in Mortal Kombat 1 isn't that bad. His design as a sub-boss is very well executed in MK3. It's a nice departure from the Shokan of the previous two games, and I recall being absolutely floored the first time fighting him. Although centaurs as a concept aren't anything new, I feel that Motaro added an aura of fear and danger. Unfortunately, his Armageddon design was a huge step back. From my personal perspective, Motaro was one of the most difficult sub-bosses to defeat in the series. His moveset mixed with how fast he could move had me in a constant state of rage. Defeating him was the ultimate prize, and I honestly found him more challenging than Shao Kahn most of the time. I just wanted to add in an editor's note and say that after fighting Shao Kahn in UMK3, I've determined that Motaro is definitely not more difficult than Shao Kahn. Like, at all. I really like Motaro as a character and a sub-boss. He's ridiculously tough to fight, but his design in MK3 is excellent. Motaro's lack of backstory is a bit disappointing because I'd love to learn more, but sometimes it's not necessary to know every detail about a character. In fact, sometimes that makes them more threatening. Having him end the fan favorite Johnny Cage was a bold move, and I'm here for it. For all the positives I've mentioned, I'll just say I strongly dislike the decision to make him a Minotaur in Armageddon. I understand that this was primarily a development obstacle, but it just didn't work. Overall, and this may be a bit controversial, I'm putting Motaro ahead of Kintaro in the A tier.
Round 1. Fight!
The next legitimate sub-boss takes us to Moloch in Deadly Alliance. Moloch's bio in Deadly Alliance classifies this monster as a member of the Oni species, which are basically demons. Although the bio throws a not-so-subtle jab at Moloch's intellect, he makes up for that with his power. In the story, Quan Chi encountered Moloch and fellow Oni, Draman, offering the pair an exit from the Netherrealm if they protected the sorcerer from Scorpion. They accepted, but upon the Spectre's arrival, Quan Chi escaped, prompting Moloch and Draman to pursue him, only to end up in a different location. Following an encounter with Cyrax, Moloch and Draman found refuge in a forest, eventually stumbling across Shang Tsung. Shang Tsung held the two as an insurance policy in case he needed extra help to take down Quan Chi, but the two did not even pursue him upon release. The two fought Scorpion, and after throwing him into a Soul Nado, they disappeared.
The hunt for Quan Chi had led Scorpion to the palace of Shang Tsung. Scorpion entered the palace through a hidden passage. As he made his way through the lower levels, he was discovered by the two Oni he had previously encountered while in the Netherrealm. Shang Tsung had secretly allied with Moloch and Draman as a backup defense against Quan Chi. The two Oni had been hidden in an underground chamber and were periodically fed mortals to keep them satisfied. Scorpion fought well, but was overpowered by Moloch and Draman. Although they could not consume the ninja Spectre, they devised another means for eliminating their foe that would satisfy their cruel nature. The Oni brought Scorpion before the portal to the heavens that Shang Tsung had tapped as a source of limitless souls. They hurled him into the Soul Nado, and his hellspawn body was ripped apart by the purity of that realm.
Moloch resurfaces in Armageddon, but, and say it with me now, he fought and died alongside the forces of darkness. Apart from a small appearance in one of Quan Chi's intros, Moloch is last seen in the MKX comic, but he's pretty much just a joke. He attempts to thwart Scorpion's escape from the Netherrealm, only to fail before Revenant Katana executes him. You could also see a deceased Moloch in Mortal Kombat 11 located within Goro's lair. Moloch has your basic power moves in both of his appearances. He'll charge you, slam you, and suck you up. Overall, it's nothing we haven't seen before. Moloch is Mortal Kombat's version of an ogre, with no real personality or positive attributes. I do think his look is okay, and I'm convinced he helped inspire the giants from Resident Evil 4, but Moloch is just Moloch to me. I'm not gonna lie, Moloch was and is an insanely difficult boss. Nothing quite compares to him, especially in the 3D era. His attacks deal insane amounts of damage, and some of them are even unblockable. I could never find a straightforward, tried and true way to beat him, so despite falling short in other areas, he's an absolute monster as a pure sub-boss. To me, Moloch is a pioneer in the Mortal Kombat series. Midway kept relying on Goro to carry the franchise as an intimidating force, but those 3D era kids had to deal with Moloch. As a character, I think he's pretty weak, similar to the many forgotten characters of that era. However, since I'm taking level of difficulty into consideration, Moloch deserves his due. I initially thought C tier would make sense, but B is a fair assessment, purely looking at him as a sub-boss. He was essentially the 3D era Goro, and although he wasn't as iconic as a character, I know I'm not the only one who shuddered at the sight of him.
Round 1. Fight!
Even including Noob-Smoke on this list might be somewhat controversial, but they fit the bill of a sub-boss. They were consistently the last fight before Onaga, so I think they deserve a spot on this list. Noob-Smoke's first and only appearance occurred in Mortal Kombat Deception. Their bio tells the story of yet another tragic tale for Smoke, who after being locked away by Shao Kahn, was recovered by Noob-Saibot. The Wraith reprogrammed Robo-Smoke to only follow his orders, officially creating them as Noob-Smoke. Although Noob-Saibot and Smoke stuck together in Armageddon, the Noob-Smoke concept was abandoned. Most characters in Deception have 3 distinct fighting styles, but this is where Noob-Smoke is different. Instead, Noob-Smoke has 2 fighting styles, one for Noob and one for Smoke. Although Smoke lost his chest spear, he keeps his teleport uppercut, adds some new moves, and even has a few tag team moves with Noob-Saibot. Noob also has his own set of moves. Noob-Smoke only had a pair of fatalities in Deception, and they were okay, but nothing special. Noob-Smoke has been one of my favorite concepts since I booted up Deception for the first time. I mean, it takes 2 of the coolest Mortal Kombat characters and combines them. Some could say that this is not the most original concept, but I think combining 2 characters into one is a tricky proposition. I think Midway did a great job with it, and although we've only seen it once, it made a lasting impact on me at least. Noob-Smoke was a tricky sub-boss in Deception, but not as bad as some of the others on this list. However, I will say that I had more trouble with Noob-Smoke than I did Onaga, but maybe that says more about me than anything else. There's nothing particularly insane that stands out about Noob-Smoke, except that you're fighting 2 people. I could sit here all day and sing the praises of Noob-Smoke, but I'll reiterate that I love this concept. It was unexpected and great overall. However, making them a sub-boss doesn't make much sense just in the grand scheme of things. Sub-bosses were always monstrous, intimidating characters, and Noob-Smoke just doesn't fit that description. I mean, it's a challenging fight, but nothing close to the others. As a character, Noob-Smoke is an A tier minimum, but as a sub-boss, I think C tier is fair enough. And there you have it, every sub-boss in Mortal Kombat history ranked. Here's a quick recap. Goro stands alone in the S tier. Motaro and Kintaro landed in the A tier. Moloch settled into the B tier. And finally, Noob-Smoke found themselves in the C tier. I had a lot of fun doing this tier list, although going through each game and working my way up to every sub-boss was not easy. The early games pulled no punches and made you work for everything that you earned. If I had to rank them in terms of difficulty after fighting every single one of them, it would probably go Motaro, Goro, Kintaro, Moloch, and then Noob-Smoke. It's a shame the series has abandoned this concept, but at least the characters still exist in canon. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Also, leave a comment down below and let me know what you'd like to see me rank next. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another video soon.